All right, hello there everybody. Welcome back to another video for the BYU PreMed student. We're going to jump right into it because you are busy and we're all busy, and so let's just get into it. Today's video is going to be how to develop that strong medical school application. And specifically the way to do this, I believe, and the way that most of my successful friends did it as well, was through something called the story-driven narrative. So let's talk more about this. Basically, back in the day, and you'll find this when you go into medical school, you'll talk to a lot of older physicians, and these are physicians who graduated medical school and residency basically before the year 2005. So this is the early 2000s, the 1990s. And don't be surprised when they tell you that they have no clue how they got into medical school. And it's actually kind of bizarre for me to meet some of these older physicians who have no idea what the modern medical student is going through. It's very, very bizarre. I've met so many physicians who basically stumble into their specialties and they stumbled into medicine as a career. And if you ask them, they'll say, well, I went to this school and I don't know, I thought maybe I'd be good at it, so I took the classes, and then I took the 4-hour MCAT. I did okay, and then I just applied, and I got into like 3 places. And then you'll find people who say the same thing about specialties because it just wasn't as competitive back in the day. And so you'll meet some sort of older doctor who says, well, I was going to go into radiology or something, but then somebody just called me after I applied and said, hey, we have an opening in orthopedic surgery. Do you want to come be an orthopedic surgeon? And I said, well, okay, I guess I'll go do it. That's actually really common. There are lots of random stories like that from people. And what I'm getting at is it's not really like that anymore, where you can just stumble into medicine. You can stumble into medical school by accident or just because you woke up one morning and said, yeah, I really want to go for it. So I'm just going to take the prereqs, but take the MCAT, I'll probably do fine and then I'll get in somewhere. It's not like that anymore. You can't just bank on getting in somewhere. Today, medical schools focus much more on the applicant himself or herself, right? The humanistic qualities behind that person. They want to know really who you are as a person. They have really focused and pivoted to highlighting that medical students and doctors are real people, and the best types of doctors aren't just people who are extremely smart, but they're well-rounded people. They're people who care about the human condition. They're people who care about patients, right? And we need to explore those, and we need to encourage people to pursue all those different factors that make up a person. And so that's what you have to do today if you're going to be a medical student. Now, maybe in the future it will change again. Maybe the pendulum will shift the other day. But as of recording this video right now in 2026, it's not like that anymore. So again, people's stories matter, and that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's a good thing because it gives you a lot of room to be able to talk about yourself, and you can explore the things that you want to do. You don't have to feel that you have to be hemmed in to some sort of corner, or that you have to be placed into some sort of box and you have to be a cookie cutter applicant. You don't have to. You can do pretty much whatever you want as long as it tells your story specifically about why you want to go into medicine. And all the parts of your story matter, right? Your race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, things like that, all that matters. So the best way to present yourself on an application is with a clear story-driven narrative. And the best way to do this is to use all the experiences in your extracurriculars and the things you do with your time to tell an admissions committee about yourself. So I've included a few examples here. I want you to try to look through these. There's 4 examples, and try to get a sense of what I'm driving at. And I think it will help you if you try to structure your story and your time at BYU to do something like this. So here's an example of a bad example of a story-driven narrative. And I've met lots of students at BYU who were extremely bright and way smarter than I am, and they did this, and this was sort of a problem. So you have some sort of a student who has great stats, great GPA, great MCAT. Things are looking good there. And then they volunteer at a hospital somewhere in the area, maybe back home, maybe in Provo. They do it for a year. They like it. It was fine. They also worked at a research lab at BYU, any lab, right? They took a couple of classes. They liked what they were doing. They reached out. They were able to get a space. And then they worked for one summer as a phlebotomist. Why? Because it was a good thing to do, and they had the opportunity to become a phlebotomist. They could afford to take the class for it. They spent a year volunteering through YServe, cleaning up the community. They went every week. They got some good hours doing it. It was a good experience. And then they rocked the MCAT, so then they also worked as an Altius tutor to help other people take the MCAT. And then on their application, they write that they have a passion for helping the underserved and things like that. Now, when you look at this application and you don't think about the story-driven narrative, this seems like a really good application because their stats are so high and because they're checking the boxes. But it's a really bad application. And why? Because the narrative and the story isn't there and it doesn't make any sense. And then when you're answering your secondaries when you apply to medical school and you're talking about why or what you want to do with your life and if you want to help the underserved, there's pretty much nothing in your ECs, in your story, that proves this. There's nothing that backs up what you say. And that's a big problem because people will just see right through you. And a committee will look through that and say, well, this is just another cookie cutter applicant. This is really not a unique person, right? So let's go to a good example of a student. So a committee reads something like this. Imagine this type of student, and think about this to yourself. Somebody with a 514 MCAT, which is pretty good. At BYU, you'll probably say that's still bad because everybody at BYU is so high achieving. But a 514 MCAT is pretty good. And then their science GPA and their cumulative GPA is actually pretty good too. So let's say that this student wanted to become a doctor because he or she was fascinated with the human body. They played sports in high school, something like basketball. So because they liked that so much, they decided to be an exercise science major because why not? You learn a lot more about it and it's a popular major. It seems like a good fit. And because this person loves sports, he or she volunteers as a coach teaching kids some sort of sport on the weekends through YServe. Okay, looking pretty good. And they work as a research assistant in a lab studying foot orthotics, again, in line with love or passion for fitness, exercise, things like that. And then they really liked their exercise science anatomy class, so then they work as a TA in it because they did well in the class and they really enjoyed it. And then as a hobby, they still play basketball or do some sort of sport on the weekends when they can. They really like it. And then they volunteered in the hospital for 6 months. And because of that, they decided that they would become a scribe for an orthopedic surgeon. And this person writes on their application that he or she wants to go into orthopedics. This narrative is great. This is pretty good. Yeah, there's some things we could clean up there. Not everybody can pick and choose everything they want to do, but you definitely have choices in what you can get involved in. And this is way better. This makes a lot more sense. This applicant is leaping off the page. I'm hooked. And this person, I believe this person, because when they say they want to go into orthopedics, I think their narrative is going to be really interesting. And I want to read this person's personal statement because, by golly, it seems like they've got everything that convinces me that they want to do this. And their narrative is very clear. They have some sort of passion for sports or for exercise or the human body or something like that. And they're pursuing their extracurriculars and the things that take up their time have to do a little bit with that narrative. Now, every narrative is going to be different. People are different. Their passions are different. But you can try to hone in on it, the things that make you you and the things that you really enjoy, and do that, and then relate it back to medicine. Try to relate it back to being a pre-med, right? And you can definitely do that. And when you do, man, it really looks good because, gosh, it's so much more interesting as a story to read and learn about you. Now, we don't have to go through all of these again. I have another example here for somebody who's a BYU athlete. And again, you have BYU athletes at BYU who are interested in health professions, but they're often really, really busy because sports, organized sports at pretty much any level can take up your time a lot. So you don't always have time to pick and choose and do everything you want to do that maybe all your pre-med friends are doing, because they have free time and you got to be in the gym, or you got to be exercising here, or you got to be going to this workout or doing this. That's a lot of work and a lot of time, which is okay. You just have to try to have a narrative that fits with what you want to do. It's okay. Even if you have more than one narrative, and in this example, which you can read, this person has some sort of a passion for art and a passion for sports. And that's okay. You can have more than one passion, more than one thing that makes you you, more than one thing that you're pursuing when you're in undergrad. And that's okay too. You just have to follow the narratives all the way through and connect them back to medicine and not make them random. Okay, and this is the last example. Another good example I think this is a better example of somebody who's more of an average-ish kind of student at BYU. Somebody who may not have all the time in the world to pursue a bunch of different extracurriculars, but then somebody who still has time to do what he or she wants. And this is another good narrative as well when you read through it and read my explanation. Even though this person's MCAT and GPA are not amazingly high, I don't really care about that when I'm reading that. And the friends that I have who also have gotten into medical school, and especially at more prestigious universities, they don't really care that much either. Yeah, it looks better if you're to make a cutoff, right? If you can have a higher MCAT, higher GPA, none of that's going to hurt you. But you're not a robot. And again, that story is really interesting. We all love stories, and hearing or seeing on paper what a person has done really starts to paint a picture in your head of what this person is like. And if it all seems to fit kind of into a narrative, it's really, really good, because it makes you stand out, because it makes you unique as a person. You have this identity, you have these passions. So try to pursue those. How do you do this? We've talked about this a lot. The biggest thing to do is, before you do anything really at BYU, ask yourself if this is something that I'm really interested in. Are you actually interested in doing this thing? Or do you think it's just going to look good on paper because your dad, who graduated from medical school in 1996 or 1998, 2003, said it was a good idea? Or because you have an older brother or sister who's an oncology fellow at, I don't know, Duke University or something, and they tell you that this is the best thing for you to do? Think about this for a second, right? Really think through this, because you're not your father or your mother or your sister or your brother, right? Now, their advice could be good or it could lead you astray, but think about this. Are you really interested in it? Are you interested in having your application tell a story about you? Because that will 100% make you jump off the page. It will make you unique. And then think about this. Does anything I do, does the thing I'm doing, does that tell a story about you? Just ask yourself about this. Do I have a narrative, and is what I'm doing fitting that narrative? Because if I'm not doing something that's in that narrative, that's okay, because not everybody has the option to do every single thing that's going to fit a story about them, right? But you want to try to keep it on track in that same direction, because if you're bouncing around doing a bunch of different things, you're falling off course, and it's not really painting a good picture about you. So just think about those things. Remember that every year there are many students at BYU who do not get accepted, and I've met so many of them, and they have to reapply, and they tell me, oh, well, the pre-med advisory committee or something told me that this is really common and lots of people reapply at BYU, and it's BYU, it's just fine. It's not a big deal. And it is a big deal. Reapplying is expensive, and it's really hard to do, and it's a mental strain on you or your partner, your spouse, whoever it is. It's not easy. You do not want to have to reapply. And the best thing you can do so you don't have to reapply is to try to put your best foot forward. Do the best that you can. And the easiest thing you can do is have a story-driven narrative. And if you do this, even if you don't get accepted, you can look back at your application and you know it's not going to be because I had a story-driven narrative. If you didn't get into med school, it's not because of your story-driven narrative. If you had one that was really good, that's not the problem. It's got to be something else, and the least you can rule that out. So think about this, think through it, try to make the most of your application and tell a story about yourself. This will make it way easier later when you're answering your secondaries, when schools are asking you about something that makes you unique or diverse, or why you're applying to the school, or what programs are you interested in, or why do you want to become a physician, and all these sorts of things. Because the story helps you figure out your direction in life, helps you figure out what you're aspiring to. All right, so that's it for today. Just breathe, keep going, read back through this PowerPoint, through this video. You can do it. I believe in you. You're going to be great.